Hey there Guardians, TBL here, and today we're continuing our Update 2.4.0 weapon tuning discussion. In this section, Blkvox and I discuss the changes that have come to the pulse rifle weapon class. And as usual, we'll give you our opinions on how we think these changes will affect the Crucible as a whole. But alright, thanks for tuning in guys, and I hope you all enjoy. But alright, moving on here, we're moving into the pulse rifles now, which Bungie states that with high rate of fire pulse rifles being strong contenders in the Crucible, we put our lens on the mid and low rate of fire models, nudging them slightly forward while still maintaining pulses around the 3-burst kill. The one change, well, they've only really made two changes here. Number one, they increased the rate of fire for the Haka pulse rifle, the EotW D, and number two, they've given a minor increase of 2% to damage for the middle rate of fire family of pulse rifles. So like the Nerwin's Mercy, the Red Death, the stuff in that class, which I'm happy about. I wanted a buff for that class of pulse rifle.
Wait, what?
I wanted a buff for that class of pulse rifle, the Nerwin's Mercy, Red Death. The mid-range ones, man. I think they're kind of the weapon that has, like, I think the most uncomfortable meta right now because they're not useful in any way, shape, or form in any content. They're not useful in PvE, they're not useful in PvP, not even in the most niche situations. And it's really because of the big damage reduction that they got. What was it, back in December, I think?
I want to say around that time, that's when they nerfed them. Like, that was with the Hawksaw nerf too, so it was around that time.
And yeah, it just body bagged Nerwin's Mercy, which used to be like everybody's favorite reliable pulse rifle, and it's just it's garbage now. Their optimal time to kill is literally the suboptimal time to kill of basically every other competitive weapon type. So your fastest time to kill on mid-impact pulse rifles is super duper slow. It's as slow as getting all body shots with like hand cannons or a Hawksaw right now. You have no incentive to play with medium impact pulse rifles, and hopefully this damage buff will bring them a little bit more in line with what they used to be. I was hoping for something a bit higher, like maybe a 4 to 5% damage increase, just to bump up the precision damage they do by maybe 1 or 2 points, so they can just kill a little bit faster. But I guess we'll have to see exactly what a 2% damage buff will bring out. I'm hoping this really affects Red Death, because Red Death is in a bad spot right now.
Honestly, I'm not too surprised by this change. It's a very, very modest change, as with everything else in this patch. Everything they're doing just seems like a little nudge and a little bit more, and I hope that it's laying the groundwork for something bigger later on. I'm not too sure if Red Death is affected by that archetype. You said it was the mid-impact, right?
They state that it is a minor increase of 2% to damage for middle rate of fire pulses.
Middle rate of fire. So that would be there's 66, there's 77, there's 59, and there's 73, and then, yeah, so 77, 73, 66, and 57. Those are the tiers of rate of fire. I'm not too sure if that would apply to it, but in case it does, good, because Red Death needs a buff, but everything else in that tier also needs a buff. I think Final Duty's in there.
Yeah.
Smite of Moraine's in there.
Well, they specifically mention the Nerwin's Mercy when they talk about this family of pulse rifles. And Nerwin's Mercy is a 66 rate of fire, 14 impact pulse, which I do believe is the same as the Red Death.
Correct.
So hopefully that means a bonus bit of damage for the Red Death, because that's an exotic that feels anything but right now.
Yeah. So Herja D, PDX41, Red Death, Smite of Moraine, Nerwin's Mercy, everything in that tier is set to get a buff, which is good.
That's good. That's good.
Honestly, that's the one archetype that really needs it.
Yeah.
And Hopscotch. Yes.
It's an archetype that really it doesn't have any place in the meta right now. Mercules, I think he made a quick little breakdown of some of these changes, and here was his response to that. The Lyudmila is still a difficult gun to use, but the increased rate of fire could push it into the top tier range for people who have great rolls. Nerwins will now be able to kill in 6 critical hits and 1 body shot, but the time to kill overall is unchanged. And we can assume that's probably going to mean about the same thing for Red Death and for everything else in that same archetype. So it's still going to have a really bad time to kill, which sucks. Body shot time to kill for I think this pulse rifle archetype is like 1.5 seconds, which is way higher than just about everything else. Way higher. That's a super slow time to kill.
They wanted to nerf pulse rifles at the end of House of Wolves. They really did it, and they haven't. Yeah. This is a step, but I really hope that they make a giant leap soon, because right now it's just not cutting it.
I mean, you know how we pretty much disagree with them dumbing down the Crucible as a whole, and especially with them with the way they seem to really want to nerf primaries. I never understood that sort of mindset, and just jumping the time to kill up as much as they have over the past year. And yeah, middle range pulses, they've definitely suffered from that. They have definitely suffered a ton from that.
Wait. At the beginning of this paragraph, did they say they were increasing the fire rate on the Lyudmila D?
Yes, they are increasing the fire rate on the Lyudmila D.
Why are they doing that? It's in the messenger and spare change archetype. Why are they doing that?
I have no idea.
Is that just getting some special rate of fire?
It looks like it's just that they didn't mention anything in that archetype. They just mentioned that specific pulse rifle.
If they're gonna do that, they're gonna need to do the spare change as well, because that's the only readily available. Those two are the only readily available high impact pulses in that archetype that are in here too. Yeah. You've still got. I mean, if you've held on your 3 little words, your fair and square, or your super pox blow, then yes, you do have some options. But for those that are readily available in year 2, you only really have 2 choices. So if they're just increasing that 1 pulse rifle, that means
that's weird.
That's telling me that they're trying to give that archetype a bump, but only buffing 1 weapon in that class, which I'm scratching my head on that one.
Maybe it's because they look at the player usage numbers and they see that out of all those pulse rifles, this is the one that you use the least. I don't know. I really don't understand it, because it seems like if this is going to be getting a higher rate of fire, isn't that just going to put it at the very tip top of that archetype of pulses?
Pretty much. The only thing that's bad on the Lyudmila, at least in bases, is aim assist. I think it's got the lowest in its class.
That might be it. Definitely a weird choice to just increase the rate of fire on that one, but those are the only changes coming to pulse rifles, and not much more to say there, other than, you know, a good start. Glad to see an increase in damage. I'm really bummed that there's no changes coming to high impact pulses. And it's really weird that Lyudmila D is getting a rate of fire increase.
That's the only high impact pulse that got a buff.
Yeah.
Like the messenger stays nerfed, the spare change is still bad. If you have a 3 little words or a super pox bolo, like, you're still gonna be struggling, which sucks. But if you have a Lyudmila D, you've got a shot. Apparently that's how they balance stuff. I don't understand. Like, yes, it's a gunsmith weapon. Yes, it's getting a buff. Yes, you can roll for it 3 times a week if there's a package for it. But what about the other guns in that archetype? Aren't you just neglecting them? If you're just buffing that one?
Unless Lyudmila has, like, always fired slower than those other guns, I don't really understand why they'd focus on it.
It must have a bug currently where it's firing slower than intended. So
something like
hopefully that's the case. Hopefully it's just not 1 buff to 1 gun in that specific archetype of pulses.
That'd be weird. And there we go. That was pretty much it for our discussion on the changes coming to pulse rifles. And in my opinion, it's a good start. The medium impact tier of pulse rifles, the Nerwin's Mercy, Red Death, that stuff really needed a damage buff very badly. And while 2% isn't great, it's certainly a start. However, I am still very bummed that we didn't get any sort of change to the high impact pulse rifles. Those are kind of in a similar situation to the high impact autos. But alright guys, that's it for this discussion video. Be sure to let us know how you feel down in the comment section below about all of these changes that have come to 2.4.0. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I am the Blacklink. You Guardians, stay frosty.